The desert world of Kaeldar wasn't meant for humans. At least, that's what the mission briefing had said before everything went wrong. The sky above me burned in shades of violet and amber, streaked with slow-moving clouds that shimmered like molten glass. Twin suns hovered at different heights, casting overlapping shadows that made distance hard to judge. The wind whispered constantly, dragging fine silver sand across the surface in restless waves. And somewhere behind me, my crashed ship was still smoldering. I wiped sweat and dust from my face, gripping the plasma cutter tighter. The emergency beacon had failed. My comms were dead. The only thing still functioning was my survival suit, and even that flickered warnings every few minutes. I wasn't just stranded. I was alone. Or, at least, I thought I was. A sudden shift in the air made me freeze. The wind stopped. Not slowed. Not faded. Stopped. Every instinct I had screamed danger. Then I saw them. Figures emerged from behind the dunes. Tall, cloaked, moving with unnatural grace. Their armor reflected the twin suns in fractured patterns, making them look like living shards of light. Aliens. Not just any aliens. Warriors. I raised my cutter, knowing it was useless. There were at least a dozen of them. They spread out in a silent arc, surrounding me without rushing, without hesitation. Predators who knew their prey had nowhere to go. One of them stepped forward. She was different. Her armor was more intricate, lined with glowing patterns that pulsed like a heartbeat. A long, flowing mantle trailed behind her, shifting colors with every movement. Her helmet dissolved away in a ripple of light, revealing a face that was almost human. Almost. Her eyes were luminous, silver with faint rings of blue. Her skin carried a soft, iridescent sheen, like moonlight on water. And when she looked at me, I felt something strange, not fear, not exactly. Recognition. She tilted her head slightly. Then she spoke. "You do not belong here." Her voice wasn't heard through the air. It echoed directly in my mind. I swallowed. Yeah, I figured that part out. The warriors tightened their circle. The alien woman studied me for a moment longer before stepping closer. I instinctively stepped back. Bad move. Two of the warriors instantly raised their weapons, long, curved blades that hummed with energy. "Do not move," she said calmly. I froze. "Good," she continued. "You learn quickly." "Look," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I didn't come here on purpose. My ship crashed. I'm just trying to survive." She walked around me slowly, examining me like I was some kind of artifact. "A fragile species," she murmured. "Yet you crossed the void." "Yeah, well, we're good at that." She stopped in front of me again, her gaze piercing. "Come." Before I could respond, she reached out and grabbed my wrist. The moment her skin touched mine, everything changed. A surge of energy shot through me, like lightning tearing across my nerves. My vision exploded into fragments, images, memories, sensations that weren't mine. Stars burning, worlds collapsing, a throne of light surrounded by endless war. I gasped, stumbling forward as the connection snapped. The warriors reacted instantly, blades raised, but the woman lifted a hand to stop them. Her expression had changed. Not calm anymore. Shocked. "You," she whispered. I pulled my hand back, heart racing. What the hell was that? She stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. Then, without warning, she tightened her grip on my wrist again. "Hey, you will come with me," she said firmly. "I don't have a choice, do I?" Her eyes narrowed slightly. "No." They led me across the desert as the suns began to dip lower in the sky. Their encampment appeared suddenly, hidden behind a ridge of black stone. Sleek, angular structures rose from the sand, glowing faintly with the same shifting light as their armor. At the center stood a large, ornate tent-like structure, its surface woven from shimmering material that seemed almost alive. That's where she took me. The other warriors stopped at the entrance, but she pulled me inside without hesitation. The interior was unexpected. It wasn't primitive or tribal like I had imagined. It was advanced. Holographic displays floated in the air, projecting star maps and data streams. Strange devices lined the walls, humming softly with energy. And at the center, a circular platform surrounded by glowing symbols. She released my wrist and turned to face me. For now, you are safe here. For now, I repeated. That depends on what you are. I already told you, human. From Earth. She studied me again, then shook her head. No, that is not what I meant. I frowned. Then what did you mean? Instead of answering, she stepped closer again. Your touch, she said slowly. It awakened something. I didn't do anything. You did not intend to, she agreed. But intention is irrelevant. She reached out again, hesitating for the first time. I must confirm. Before I could argue, her fingers brushed against my hand once more. The reaction was immediate. This time, the visions were clearer. I saw her, not as she stood now, but seated on a vast throne, surrounded by beings who bowed before her. Armies stretched across alien landscapes, banners of light cutting through the sky. And then, darkness. A war. Her people falling. Her power breaking. I staggered back as the connection ended, breathing hard. What was that? I asked. Her expression had softened, something like vulnerability flickering across her face. You saw my memories, she said. Yeah, and I'm guessing that's not normal. No, she admitted. It is not. Silence stretched between us. Then she spoke again. I am Lyra. Ethan. I replied automatically. She nodded, as if committing the name to memory. You are not here by accident, Ethan. I let out a short, humorless laugh. Pretty sure crashing my ship counts as an accident. Her gaze sharpened. The universe does not operate on accidents. Yeah? Then what does it operate on? Connection. I cross my arms. And you think I'm connected to what? You. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned toward the platform in the center of the tent. Come, she said again. I hesitated. You said I was safe here. You are, she replied. But only if you trust me. I glanced at the entrance, where the silhouettes of her warriors stood guard. Not like I've got a better option, I muttered. I stepped onto the platform. The moment I did, the symbols around it lit up. Lyra joined me, standing directly across from me. Whatever happens, she said quietly, do not resist. Not exactly comforting. She placed her hand against my chest. And the world vanished. This time, I wasn't just seeing her memories. I was inside them. I stood on a battlefield beneath a burning sky. Energy blasts streaked across the horizon, and towering alien war machines clashed in violent bursts of light. Lyra stood beside me, but not the Lyra I knew. This version of her radiated power. Her eyes blazed like stars, and the air around her shimmered with raw energy. We are losing, she said. Her voice carried the weight of an entire civilization. Then we fight harder, I replied, except I hadn't meant to speak. The words weren't mine. She turned to look at me. You always say that. Confusion twisted inside me. What? But she was already looking back at the battlefield. They cannot be defeated by strength alone. Then what's the plan? She hesitated. Then, quietly, I will break the bond. A sudden sense of dread filled me. That's a terrible idea. It is the only way. The scene fractured. Everything shattered into light. And then, I was back. I collapsed to my knees, gasping for air. Lyra stepped back, her expression filled with something I hadn't seen before.
Fear. You were there, she said.
I didn't just see it, I replied, still trying to catch my breath. I felt it, like I was part of it. She nodded slowly. Because you were. I stared at her. That doesn't make any sense. It does, she said. You are the other half. Other half of what? She hesitated. Then, finally, my power. The words hung in the air. I blinked. Okay, I'm definitely going to need more explanation than that. She took a deep breath. My people possess a unique ability, she began. We form bonds, connections that amplify our strength, our awareness, our existence. Sounds convenient. It is also dangerous, she said. If the bond is broken, the consequences are catastrophic. I remembered the battlefield, the moment she said she would break the bond. You broke it, I said quietly. She nodded. To save my people. And it didn't work.
No.
Silence fell again. Okay, I said slowly. So, where do I come in? Her gaze locked onto mine. When the bond shattered, it did not disappear. I felt a chill run down my spine. It found you. I let out a disbelieving laugh. You're saying I've been walking around with half of your alien superpower inside me? Yes. Since when? Since the moment you were born. That wiped the smile off my face. That's not possible. Yet you are here, she said simply. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to process everything. So, what now? She stepped closer again. Now, we restore the bond. And what happens if we don't? Her expression darkened. Then both of us will eventually collapse. I swallowed. Define collapse. Your body will fail, she said. Your mind will fracture. And I all will lose what remains of my power. Great, I muttered. No pressure. She almost smiled. None at all. The ritual began at night. The twin suns had set, leaving the sky filled with unfamiliar stars. The encampment was silent, as if the entire world was holding its breath. I stood on the platform again, this time willingly. Lyra stood across from me, her armor gone, replaced by a flowing, luminous garment. You must not resist, she reminded me. Yeah, I remember. She stepped closer. Ethan, once this begins, there is no turning back. I met her gaze. Funny. I've been thinking the same thing since I crashed. For a moment, something softened in her eyes. Then she placed her hand over mine. The energy surged again, but this time it didn't hurt. It flowed.
Warm. Steady. Alive.
The connection formed slowly, like two halves of a broken circuit finally meeting again. I felt her thoughts, her memories, her strength, and she felt mine. Every fear, every doubt, every fragile piece of humanity I carried. The bond completed with a pulse of light that spread outward, rippling through the tent and beyond. I gasped as the energy settled. It didn't overwhelm me anymore. It became part of me. I looked at Lyra. She looked different, stronger,
whole,
and yet somehow closer. It is done, she said softly. Yeah, I replied. Feels like it. We stood there for a moment, connected in a way I couldn't fully understand. Then I asked the question that had been lingering in my mind. So, what happens now? She held my gaze. Now, you have a choice.
A choice?
You may return to your world, she said, or you may remain here with me. I exhaled slowly. A few hours ago, I had been a stranded pilot just trying to survive. Now, I was something else, connected to an alien princess, part of something far bigger than myself. I looked around the tent, then back at her. You said I didn't have a choice before, I said. Her lips curved slightly. You do now. I considered it.
Earth.
Home. Normal life. Then I thought about the battlefield, the war, the bond that had brought me here, and the feeling I had when our connection completed. Like I finally fit. I met her eyes again. Guess I'm staying. For the first time since I met her, Lyra smiled. Ending. The desert winds rose again outside, carrying whispers of a future yet unwritten. Together, we stepped out of the tent, not as strangers bound by fate, but as partners bound by choice. Whatever war had once broken her world would come again, of that I had no doubt. But this time she wouldn't face it alone. And neither would I.